And New York officials say the unrest at Columbia and other universities were assisted by outside groups. Now attorneys from the United States and Israel are suing two organizations, accusing them of collaborating with Hamas. CBN's Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
Pro-Palestinian demonstrations began at Columbia University and quickly spread to college campuses coast to coast. Authorities dealing with the unrest found a number of outside groups supported the protest and even encouraged violence. The lawsuit filed in Virginia accuses the American Muslims for Palestine and National Students for Justice in Palestine of collaborating with Hamas to serve as their propaganda division in the U.S.
These groups are the primary drivers of what we're seeing today happening across campuses in the United States, which have effectively become a second front for Hamas since October 7.
Arsen Ostrowski, CEO of the International Legal Forum, working with the U.S. legal team of Greenberg Traurig and the National Jewish Advocacy Center, describes what these groups are doing.
They are acting and serving in collaboration and coordination with Hamas, essentially as propagandists and collaborators on campus to try and promote the Hamas extremist ideology.
Ostrowski tells CBN News these groups began mobilizing the day after October 7th. The lawsuit documents how these groups became the foot soldiers of Hamas on U.S. college campuses.
Hamas issued a call to action, and the very next day, SJP and their affiliates throughout the United States, they answered that call. They answered that directive. They created a toolkit, a manifesto for their chapters across the United States, echoing the language, the terminology, the instructions by the Hamas terror group, and propagated that across campuses.
The lawsuit also seeks compensation for damages.
There are 9 plaintiffs, including Americans and Israelis as well, and these plaintiffs include victims of survivors of the Nova massacre. They include those that have been displaced, and they also include family members of those that have been massacred by Hamas.
Ostrowski hopes they can shut these groups down by proving they've violated the U.S. Anti-Terrorism Act by aiding and abetting a terror group.
They're the ones fomenting the hatred, the anti-Semitism, the harassment of Jewish students. We need to shut them down, and we can do that legally by branding them as a terrorist organization, as a collaborator of the Hamas terror group, and making sure once and for all they cannot be active on campus.
Ostrowski says in addition to the military battlefield, Israel must fight in the international legal arena.
Today, what we're seeing is that the state of Israel is being demonized and vilified and delegitimized and painted as a pariah, where we're seeing the international law not only being misused, but being turned into an act of lawfare against us for the simple act of defending our citizens, trying to bring back our captives. We need to change this paradigm, and we need to hold not only the perpetrators, the Hamas, accountable, but all those that enable, support, aid, abet, and fund them. And that is how we're using the law to go after all those who are supporting Hamas. And we will hold them accountable, and we will do that through the courts.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, it's really wonderful to see this and to see someone taking positive action against these groups. Just a casual observation of the protests, you know, who printed all the posters, who created all the flags, who had identical tents. You know, sort of the common joke is, well, Dick's Sporting Goods must have had a special sale that day, and all the college students took advantage of it. No, it was quite clearly organized and clearly funded from outside sources. Now the issue is, were they acting under the instructions of Hamas? There seems to be clear evidence that they were. And that was the call the day after the massacre for support, and that was a worldwide call. Then when you hear the head of Hamas thank the students, and I find that absolutely incredible, he sends a special thank you to them for being part of the, quote, flood, close quote. And that was the call. That was the Alaska flood, was the name of the action on October 7th. That's what they called it. Let me add to it. When you have an Ayatollah in Iran thanking them too, that shows just how deep this goes. That this isn't just some sort of spontaneous student protest. This was a well-orchestrated propaganda campaign. In that campaign, truth has been turned on its head. where Israel is being accused of genocide. Israel is being accused by war crimes, and it was Hamas that committed them all. Using civilians as shields is a war crime. Taking hostages, civilian hostages, away from their homeland, war crime. Using rape as a method of war is a war crime. Who is calling for genocide? Whenever you hear from the river to the sea, that is a call for genocide. That is part of the founding document of Hamas. They want to wipe Israel off the map, and they want to kill every single Jew in Israel. That's where the genocide is. Truth needs to get standing up and saying, no, not on our watch. You don't get away with these kinds of lies. You don't get away with this kind of propaganda. Not here in America. You don't get to do it.